Hey guys, it's Mike G back here with the extension series, continuing it with Gary Trent Jr. today. We're going to be talking about him and his role, future kind of extension. I think he's in a really interesting position because of the way I think Masai's building this team. And he's kind of like, I guess, the low hanging man in that kind of starter rotation and the guys that need extension. So it's going to be really interesting what Masai kind of does with them. I'm going to lay out some of the things about his game, and we're going to go through some of the options that we have with Gary Jr. at the moment. So here we're going to start games played 70, quite a bit, nice. Started 69 of them, that's quite a bit. I think in the playoffs he kind of like had that flu game 1 and game 2 and kind of didn't really show what he could do. So I think we're still expecting a little bit more in that department, but 35 minutes for the year, a lot. 15 shots per game. He got his opportunity that he really wanted. I think he's really bought into what the Raptors are doing. He sees the opportunity he's getting to play with a lot of players that are really good and want to get him better. So it's I think he's in a great situation right now. Obviously, I think he wants to continue with us, but at the same time, I think his position, his size, and all some of the things we're going to go into right now. Okay, so three-pointer obviously great. That's been great for years. Looks great on volume, great on clip. He's a great three-pointer. We get that. Two-pointers, I think, is where the issue is, though, as well. Because you'll see he takes about half his shots are twos, but a lot of them aren't around the rim, and that's why his kind of field goal percent is kind of way lower than you would expect for a two-pointer. He does a lot of mid-range stuff. I think even with his three ball, he kind of goes into this kind of fake dribble drive, step back, and that's kind of how he does all his shots. He sees an opening, does his dribble drive, and kind of steps back into the shot. And he makes tough shots with guys in his face, but I think they're not necessarily IQ shots. It's not reading the defense. It's seeing an opening and going into kind of a pre-planned package. So it's less about kind of IQ, read, react, quick, like kind of decision making. So I think that kind of shows a little bit in his intelligence kind of factor. And I think the way Masai wants to build his team, he wants the guards to kind of have a lot of experience and knowledge at that position because guard play is really tricky in the NBA because a lot of the guards are threats from way outside. So you got to learn how to when to get up on them or back off and try to protect against the drive. So it's interesting. I think he did really well this season on defense, but I think it was a little bit more overrated than people expect because of this number. Steals was really high, deflections were really high, but I think he gambles a lot on those steals and deflections. So he can get caught out of position, which forces someone from the interior to rotate off their man, giving someone an open shot. So that's obviously an issue. If he gambles and gets it, he's off, dunks it, and we know he can like dunk and kind of has a bit of a layup package, nothing too crazy, but he can do that. I think the blocks, yeah, that's probably more steals than anything. But if we look at his assists, yeah, his assists, he's more of a swing assister. He doesn't really when he has the ball and he's in ISO, he's looking for a shot. I don't think a lot of times he's looking for the like a play to make an assist or something. So it's like when he's driving, he's looking to shoot. He's looking for a place to shoot, and if he passes, it's more of a bailout situation. So here we have total rebounds. We can see he doesn't go into the paint a lot, like we said earlier. Yeah, they're mainly defensive rebounds, so I don't think he's really fighting about them. 18 points, nice, decent, okay. So I think when we look at all this and the kind of experience he's had throughout we're going to be seeing probably more consistency, and he's probably going to take a step from getting that much opportunity because he really got to play like a real full season in the NBA and be a full-time starter. So I think he's going to really come back after working this off season and kind of really come back really strong. So that's going to be really interesting to see. Let's take a look at his contract now, though. And this is where I think things get really interesting with him because when we re-signed him off his restricted free agency, we signed him for 3 years, last year player option, and now we're kind of looking at where we have to kind of price him going forward. This is going to be interesting because this is a really crucial year, I think, for Gary Trent Jr. to really show he can be a consistent starter. He deserves to be a starter, can be a really effective starter. I think he needs to improve a little bit more on his defense. But I think as a three-point shooter, he's probably going to get paid. And the fact that he can play some decent defense, he's definitely a piece in the NBA that has value. So what kind of value are we looking at? We don't necessarily know, though. It's interesting here because depending on this year, he might, depending if he definitely gets over 20 points and shows more consistency this year, shows some better defense, shows a little bit more IQ, creating shots, maybe for himself and others at times, like showing a little bit more of that would really increase his value. Obviously, if he got more volume scoring, that would obviously increase his number. But if we're looking at where we are in our whole situation and the reason behind this whole extension series, we have about 5 guys that need extensions that are looking for starting positions. And I think when you look at everyone on the roster and the other 4 guys, I think Gary Trent Jr. is kind of the low man on the totem pole. So it's interesting. Right now, I think if we hold him, we could probably get more value for him. Probably. Not going to lie. But I think Precious needs the minutes this year. So it's really a tough dilemma. It really is, I think. So obviously, if he does really well this season, he's going to decline this. And let's look at these bonuses, though, too, here. So he gets bonuses if he does certain things. And so let's look at his last year. He played 70 games, so got that. Check. Played 35 minutes per game. Check. We were a top 5 seed. Check. So he earned that money. Very nice, Gary. Nice. So this year, obviously the same kind of thing. So it's interesting, like, what situation we're in it with Gary Trent Jr. and what plans we have for him in the future. Because we have to price him at the right amount, or else it could really screw the balance of our roster going forward. Because I think in the long run, I don't see Gary Trent Jr. as the championship per se shooting guard for this team. I think his game, he's really good, but I think we could find a really better fit at that position if we're going really heavy on the forwards and maybe trying to size up at different positions. I think Gary Trent Jr. is kind of positioned out. So if we keep him, we're going to have to probably sign to an extension because most likely he's going to decline this player option depending on how the season goes. If he gets hurt or something, obviously he's going to take that player option. We're going to look at what we're going to have to do in a year from now. But I think if he does well, he's going to be looking at probably 20 plus easily. I think his skills and the way the shooting is prized today, I think he could make quite a bit on the open market. So we're going to have to look to really kind of solidify and pay him what he's deserved. So we're gonna have to really pay him. So I think in the end we're gonna probably pencil him around 23 to 25 million. I think if he gets the right numbers, which we're expecting, and I'm in the camp that I'm expecting he's gonna have a really great year for us this year. If he's not traded, of course. But I think ultimately we're going to be looking at him as a placeholder, kind of placeholder shooting guard till we kind of figure out what we're doing at the other positions long term. So I think locking him up reasonable amount can increase like the value we can get over time. So if we lock him up on, let's say, a 3 or 4 year 23 to 25 million contract, that's more of an asset than having him on just a player option right now. But I think also he's still an asset either way, but I'm thinking more, let's say, like how we can get more out of him. But I think another year, we signed to that contract, he kind of shows more stable value, and I think we could definitely be looking to get maybe 2 firsts instead of 1 first that we're kind of in the market to get right now for him, I think. So if he does great, obviously he's probably going to decline that player option and look to get up around that 20, 25 mark. And that's kind of an issue for our team salaries. I'll go through it obviously all at the end with the penciled in numbers. And we're going to look at how our cap situation looks long term, what kind of roles we can fill around that kind of so much money going to like the top couple guys. So it's really interesting where we're at now, and I think Masai's obviously looking at his options. We saw Svi get waived, so obviously he's not part of any trade. No team saw him as an asset or his salary wasn't needed, so we kind of waived him, and that kind of was dictated by how much cap space we had left. I think what it worked out to be was we could waive one guy and then guarantee Champagny and Banton's contracts. I'll go into more in that video or maybe a later video when I'm talking about the rookies and stuff and what expectations they have. But thanks for, I think, listening. We're going to pencil in that number for him right now. We're going to see. I think it's going to be interesting the next couple of weeks to see if Masai makes a trade because he doesn't like to do in-season trades. So I think if we're going to make a trade, it's probably going to be in the next couple days or a week or so because camp starts September 28th. And it's going to be really interesting. I'm really good looking forward to our team this year. It's going to be fun. I'm going to have some videos for you guys. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.